tell me briefly what your organization's about and how people can reach you.
Are you ready?
I'm filming it right now.
I'm Steve Bank. I'm the executive director of Chad's Hope in Manchester, Kentucky. Area code 606-599-9716. Call me, and I'll be sure to talk to you.
And your talk will be about what subjects?
How to get into Chad's Hope, how to become a student at Chad's Hope, and how to experience the transformation that Jesus Christ can bring into your life.
Fantastic. And beside you happens to be the gentleman and group that you were speaking to tonight.
With Christian Motorcycles Association. We're part of the local chapter here called the Circuit Riders, and you can call me at 859-356-7754.
God bless both of you. I'd have to say, sitting here at the restaurant tonight, that I really enjoyed very much being a part of listening to you all and watching you pray. And I'd have to say, I used to be a Frisch's manager. This is the first time I've ever seen this in a Frisch's. I'm thrilled to see it, particularly since I was the one that started handicapped people working with Frisch's back in the 60s, and was proud to be a part of that. And I'd like to do something right now if my wife don't get me in trouble for it, and that is to say, I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather be his than have riches untold. I'd rather have Jesus than houses or lands. I'd rather be led by his nail-pierced hand than to be the king of a vast domain, or be held in sin's dread sway. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. And right there beside you is a fellow by the name of Ed Smallwood. He was in education in Florida for most of his life. And Ree was in education, bless your heart. Ree was in education for most of her life. And I want to say goodbye, but tomorrow I'll put this on my television show so that people can see who we met at Frisch's tonight, worshiping Jesus and praising the Lord and passing the great word and the beginnings of a great revival across America to return the country to godly principles. And this is Travels with the Stephensons, 859-750-0000. Join us on Facebook under John Stephenson and on YouTube under Travels with John Stephenson. God bless you and have a great day. Enjoy our television show today. Nice to be with you.
Are you ready? Are you ready for the Lord? As we shut this off here now, and we have our guest today, Randy Wallace, of course, co-hosting with me today, minister of Oak Ridge Baptist Church, and then Larry Hensley. Larry is sort of my sidekick. We hang around together and try to stay out of trouble. Larry Hensley, and he is a graduate from Simon Kenton High School, class of 1961, same as me. And he probably rubbed elbows occasionally with a guy sitting over on the side here. We might grab him onto the set before he's finished. Kent Marcum, who happens to be the husband of Pam Marcum, here sitting beside me here, who was a graduate of Simon Kenton High School in 1961. And we got some interesting topics to talk about today. I want to say briefly about that part right in the beginning of the show. Are you ready? Is the title of our show, Are You Ready for the Lord? And I want to ask Randy if he will open us up with a word of prayer. Would you do that, Randy?
Be honored. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this chance to be here today, and thank you, Lord, for that which is before us. We just ask, Lord, that you would bless through this, and Lord, that you might educate us, but Lord, even beyond that, you might touch our hearts. And we just want to be careful to give you the praise and the glory for that, for everything you do for us, and above all, for salvation. For it's in your name. Amen.
Amen. Well, praise the Lord. You know, I wanted to tell at the beginning here, next to our our next show next month will be with Congressman, United States Congressman Thomas Massie. And I was out the other night, had the honor of singing my old Kentucky home for his opening of his campaign headquarters. And he's agreed to come on and talk about the role of the congressman and for our next show. And as a former government teacher, that's quite an honor to have him on. And but today, we're going to discuss several topics. One of those topics is Revolutionary War heroes and people who are related to them that come from Kenton County, and Pam's sort of a resident expert on this sort of thing. She's been studying it for a number of years. But before we get into that, I want to ask Pam just a little bit about her background, because I can remember as a young man coming to a little general store out at Nicholson, Kentucky, that I believe your mother and father ran, didn't they?
And my grandparents bought it in 1920 from a man named Nicholson. That's how Nicholson got its name. And so I had a great aunt who was into genealogy, and I thought she was kind of crazy. And now I'm obsessed with telling the story, especially of the people that lived in rural Kenton County. That's what I love to do.
Well, fantastic. Well, we're going to get into that story in just a bit here. And Larry, ever since I've known Larry as a high school student was beyond his times. He really was. And because of his rearing up on a farm and working with the animals and all the things that go together with cows and horses and tractor equipment, horse equipment. Larry, tell the folks where you grew up there in Kenton County.
Well, this is the road right close to Turkey Foot Road up there, and right across from the golf course that's there now.
And you were on a small farm there, right?
Right.
And what did that farm consist of, basically?
Well, we had chickens, had everything that you on a farm. We had pigs and hogs and horses, cows. We had a little dairy, and we had a few mules that we actually worked. And seemed like we worked them more we did the tractor back then.
Yes.
And that's pretty much it, I guess. The rest was hay and everything else that goes along with it.
Now, Larry went to Simon Kenton High School, class of 61, and we meet once a month as a class, whoever can make it, for lunch. And Larry, where did you start and begin your love of horses?
Well, I grew up with them. I always had a riding horse. Never got into the bicycle very much. I mostly rode a horse with the rest of the group.
And you stayed with that, haven't you?
I stayed with it, and I got into showing a horse, and I was showing a cutting horse for a long time, and went into Appaloosas and showed them for a while, and then I kind of got, after my children all got grown, I got to trail riding and traveling, and I went to a walking horse then, and I've pretty much stayed with a walking horse, and I've traveled pretty much the United States and different national forests and ride and camp out and pack in and pack out on pack horses, and spend 2 to 3 weeks a year and sometimes 2 or 3 times a year. Mm-hmm. And I go on 5 or 6, usually about 6, sometimes just 5 100-mile rides. It's within a few 100 miles of this area. And I really enjoyed traveling through the United States after I got out of service.
Now, I'm going to ask Randy if he could just step up to the keyboard for a minute or two there. And Randy is a magnificent, not only minister, is he a magnificent minister, because he really is for the Lord, but he's also extremely talented on the keyboard. And I can just sort of ask Randy to step up to the keyboard, and he doesn't have an idea in the world what I'm going to ask him to do. But that's how talented that Randy is. Sort of like my brother Gerald Stevenson. You know, you just tell him what you want to sing, and he can strum it on the guitar for you, couldn't he, Randy?
Absolutely.
And I still go down there to see him at Providence Pavilion, and we sing about 3 or 4 songs together, and I video it and put it on Facebook and YouTube so people can see Gerald is still singing, even with Alzheimer's, and doing what he loves to do, singing for the Lord. Well, Randy, this happens to be Larry Hensley's birthday. Tomorrow, technically, but we're going to celebrate it this afternoon over at Bob Evans' restaurant at 1 o'clock when we finish taping here. And June and I have a special cake made up for him, and we happen to have on that cake, well, I might make it just a little surprise, but by the time we get finished with the interview here with Larry, you'll see what the cake's going to have on it. And but before we get to that point, can we do a little bit of happy birthday to you, Randy?
Yeah.
You want me to sing along?
Yes, sir.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Larry Hensley. Happy birthday to you. And it's 77, Randy. Now, what does 7 sevens mean to the Lord?
That's the 2 numbers of completeness. Perfection.
Perfection.
Yes.
Now, I don't know what the Lord thinks about Larry. I don't know whether the Lord would say he's quite totally perfected yet. But I can tell you one thing for sure. His horse, Connie, thinks that Larry is perfected.
That's a good horse. That's a good horse.
And Judy Lampton, of course, we remember Judy. Lampton knew. And Larry's little filly that came from Connie. Larry named that little filly after Judy.
Okay.
And so we've got a little Judy filly running around there, down there somewhere. And but I wanted to say happy birthday to Larry in a special way, because Larry helps me help a lot of veterans. And part of the show today is about veterans of the Revolutionary War. And let me read something real quick before I ask Pam to go into this, because this is sort of in honor of my own family background, and a fellow named Gerald Stephenson, not my brother Gerald Stephenson, but a cousin, wrote this about, I don't know if you can get that shot there, June, or not, but anyway, it's about David Stephenson and a few other folks. You don't have to get in on it unless you can, but if you can, take a little picture of that tombstone there. And sometimes the name was spelled with a PH and sometimes with a BEN. Back in those days, it sort of got a little mixed up. But anyway, and let me read something to you about that, because I think it's important. And that is, the family had a long involvement in U.S. military, beginning with 5 Stephenson brothers, who all fought for the United States in the Revolutionary War. They were sons of Robert Stephenson, possibly Stephenson with a VH, who came here from England about 1740. I know the names of only 3, James, David, and Zadok. David, who you just saw the picture. The Stephenson story, published in 1976, that traced our descendants of James and my great-great-great-grandfather. Since then, I have traced out many that descended from David and Zadok. I am posting pictures of 24 of Robert Stephenson's descendants who served in the military. They are typical of multitudes that could have been put here. Our family has proudly served all branches of service in all major conflicts. They deserve our honor. Coming from England originally, he was of Scottish-Irish descent, but raised principally in England. He was sandy complected. He married a dark-complexioned English lady. He left England on account of his liberal principles. Boy, a lot different between the liberal principles then and the liberal principles today. We've gone a little too extreme on the liberal principles. but which made him a fit subject for the independence of the United States. Robert Stephenson, my great-great-grandfather, was the father of 5 boys. All 5 of the boys participated in the Revolutionary War. My great-great-great-grandfather, James Stephenson, was one of those 5 brothers because he applied for a pension in 1833. We have a detailed account of his war service and his service record. Private volunteer militia in the county of Cumberland, state of New Jersey, under Captain George McLaughlin and Henry W. Townsend and other officers. Much engaged as a soldier about Philadelphia in New Jersey's battles of Philadelphia, Elizabethtown, Brandywine, Fort Mifflin, or Mud Fort Island it's called, and Haddonfield. Was prisoner on British ship for 3 months and personally applauded by George Washington for his successful escape. Let's review what happened at Fort Mifflin, or Mud Fort Island. After driving back the Americans at the Battle of Brandywine, General Howe and the British Army entered Philadelphia on September 26, 1777, in order to maintain their supply lines and control of the city. They needed to secure the Delaware River, which provided the most direct access to the Atlantic Ocean. And to do this, they needed to take control of Mud Island Fort and Fort Mercer, both still under American control. On September the 26th, the British began their siege of Mud Fort Island. Over the next 3 weeks, more than 200 British cannon pounded the fort in what became one of the greatest bombardments of the Revolutionary War. After 3 weeks of shelling and a surprisingly strong defense, the Americans abandoned the fort on November the 15th. By then, 250 of more than 400 defenders had been killed or wounded, and the British now controlled the Delaware. Unfortunately for the British, however, the prolonged American defense had delayed the arrival of supply ships long enough to prevent any attack upon Washington's Continental Army until the following spring. By holding off the British so long, George Washington and his army were able to make it to Valley Forge, where they spent a brutal winter but survived to fight again. Thus, Fort Mifflin was called the fort that saved America. In our family, a big price was paid for our freedom, and therefore we celebrate. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to touch on this show today about veterans. In fact, almost every show I do, I like to touch about veterans, because veterans are our line of defense for our freedoms in this country, beginning from the Revolutionary War. And I don't know if you saw the George Washington show yet, but it's a very good show. It's a revisited history, though, because there are several things in there on that show that are not shown, particularly, Randy, the godly principles of George Washington. They rarely mention the Bible and what the Bible meant to George Washington. George Washington was not only a great Christian man to believe the Bible, but he was also a worshipful master of the lodge, the Masonic order, and very active in 4 different lodges, traveling to them speaking. And he was the worshipful master of the lodge when they laid the cornerstone of the Capitol. And when he was first sworn in, he took the whole nation into prayer. And it was sort of disappointing. But I know how today we want to sort of leave God out of things, unfortunately. And we would be nowhere as a country without God and godly principles. And so those who want to separate God from the truth are doing a great disservice to the country, and they're doing a great disservice to the Lord. And he will only tolerate that for so long. That's one of the reasons, Are You Ready? Is the name of our show. We need to be ready as a nation. We need to be ready for all kinds of things, even like this virus that's hitting us. We need to be ready. Are you ready? And that's one of the reasons I so admire my high school graduate, Larry Hensley, is a veteran. Edgar Roulette is a veteran. Terry Talent is a veteran. All of those veterans from our class, several of them. You probably know some more even, Larry.
Yes, I do.
And I want to pay tribute to them today. And And when you talk about the veterans, you got to go back and look at the original veterans for the country, and that's why Pam is here in her studies, because they're tied to us, aren't they, Pam?
Yes.
And Kent, the guy sitting over here as the husband, he used to watch over the presidents of this country. And now I know he learned some of that training by elbowing me as a basketball player from Ludlow High School. And he didn't have a microphone now, so he's sort of at a disadvantage.
He can't defend himself.
He can't defend himself. But we played basketball against each other, Larry, and he always liked the fact of playing against me because he said I was so skinny he could push me around easy. Am I right, Ken?
You got it.
And Ludlow had some great teams, and he was a great basketball player, and we loved to reminisce about that. And of course, I always say the smartest move he ever made was marrying a Simon Kenton girl, Pam. And I always say the smartest move I ever made was marrying June Geiman-Stephenson, who's running the cameras right now. And if I didn't say that, we couldn't get cut off. It's the truth, though. So I wanted to ask Larry first, as the veteran on the show right today, right now. Larry, when did you go into the service? And give us a little run of your background with Vietnam experience.
I went in September of 61.
September of 61, and you were in for how long?
Till July of 64.
July of 64.
And got called back in January of 67 and got out in 71.
And you were right on you had a major job in the service. A lot of people don't know this, but Larry worked with his crew building cell towers, so to speak, communication centers, right?
Changed a lot of it over from radio communication to microwave towers.
To microwave towers.
Towers, yeah.
And it was very dangerous, wasn't it, at times?
At times it was, yes, because anywhere there was a military base or anywhere there was an embassy in the Far East, we started out in Alaska and went to that's the first step of the Far East, and every little country, just anywhere they had a military base, and we changed over and we put the crypto room in and everything else, and where that's your decoded messages and coded messages leave. And it pretty much took that much time, but we got finished probably, I guess, about 3 months early. In the last 3 months in the service, I did a lot of just touring. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to do that because our job was completely done, you know.
And there was one time over there when you was a prisoner of war, wasn't you?
And we was setting up a field station, and we was expecting a detachment of Marines and an operator. They was bringing an operator out and going to work with him, and we was going to leave. And we heard them coming, and we thought it was the Marines, but it wasn't. And we got captured for 33 days until we broke out.
It's an interesting story on this breakout. You had to do something that was very difficult. It was a big decision that you had to make.
But if you left in the jungle, they could probably track you. If you left and went to the river, they had the river watched all the time, not just from that one spot, but all up and down it. So we went over the hill and over the mountain, and we could only climb in the nighttime and daytime because they could see you. And we watched them look for us for quite a while.
But you did escape.
Oh yes, we got over it and got clear, and finally found something to eat up there, and survived for a little while till we could get to an embassy.
It was a scary experience, though, wasn't it?
Well, it was definitely different than I'd ever been involved with before, I can tell you that.
To be caught, the chances of surviving being caught
was bad enough.
To be shot.
Yeah. You didn't know what they was going to do because you didn't understand their language to any great extent. And I think we were really just like in a holding spot till they come by and picked us up and took us on into a prison. Hopefully.
I bet you wish you had your horse Connie there when that happened.
Yeah, it would have been a little bit easier getting away. A little faster, and I wouldn't have to go over the mountain anyway.
Right. Right now, you've had a lot of vast experience. You worked on the railroad too for several years.
Yeah, I worked on the railroad 23 years, and they gave me a military time, and I got early retirement at 55, and with 25 years of service, which made, really with the military time, it made more than that, but they gave me the credit for the military time, and I went ahead and took retirement.
And one of your greatest pleasures now is riding your horse, Connie, right?
Riding my horse and traveling all over the United States. And
you've been through the high Sierras?
Been through them.
And you go on a ride down in Tennessee about every year, don't you?
Yeah, I've been going to the Loretta Lynn ride 18 years now.
18 years, so you got a silver belt buckle from that, didn't you?
Right, and 15, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I've met Connie, the horse, and she's a beautiful Palomino, right?
Right.
And Larry's got a place down in Florida, too, and up here. We're very proud of him and his veteran service, and all the veterans. Edgar Roulette served and wrote a beautiful piece about his the state he spent many hours in California. But we'll talk about that a little later. And Pam, now looking back at the history, how did you? I know you got involved with this.
Okay, I joined the DAR on my Metcalf line. I have two Metcalf line and a Stevens line. And the house that the mayor lives in Independence, that's the Metcalf-Stevens house. Those two families married, and both of them can be traced back to the Revolutionary War. So my husband and I had been to a lot of grave markings, and I kind of thought, you know, I ought to do this for Kenton County. I'm a retired history teacher. This is my love, to tell the story of these people. And so now with Ancestry, Fold 3 is a military thing online, it's not as hard as it used to be. In the old days, you had to go to all these cemeteries, all these places. Now at night, I fall asleep on the computer. I'm typing in names of Revolutionary War people. Okay, so first of all, I want to tell you about Lucinda Ellis Dunlop. This woman was a real daughter, and she's buried in the Independence Cemetery. That means her father was actually in the Revolution. So we marked her grave. I'm in the Rebecca Bryan Boone Kenton County DAR, and we marked her grave. And this book that we're writing will be in memory of her. And there's only like 500 real daughters that the DAR can trace. So it's really an exciting thing to have one in your community. Okay, so then I got into my Stevens line, and Stevens Road. A lot of these people, these Revolutionary War people like Marshall, are now roads in Kenton County. So anyway, when I was talking to the people from Independence, they had never thought about Revolutionary War people in their community. And I'm up to 60-some people now in Kenton and Campbell, because, you know, it was all one county then. So anyway, I'll show you. They got land according to their rank. And this is a chart. You can see it later. Tells how much land they got according to their rank. And our most exciting find was most of the people were buried on farms. There's no grave left. John Decker is buried on a farm in rural Kenton County, and you can read his stone. We were so excited the day we were there, we could hardly breathe, as you know, Revolutionary War enthusiasts. So anyway, when I put this, there's other women helping me, when we put this together, it will have everything that people want to know about these people that we can find. And it will be something that's never been done before. So we're excited about it. And I just feel like it's an obligation I have to tell their story.
Oh, I think so too. Now, while you're talking about that, let me put this up here so June can maybe get a little shot of this. We'll put
he married into the rich family. You know, rural Kenton County, there are a lot of rich people. Okay, and I want to tell you the National Society of the DAR is in Washington, D.C., but the Sons of the American Revolution, their headquarters is in Louisville, Kentucky. And they're building a big research center in Louisville. Okay, so there's two types of patriots. People that fought in the war and people that gave supplies to the soldiers. My Stevens guy was patriotic service. He supplied supplies. Okay, he wasn't a soldier. So anyway, you can join the DAR on either one, patriotic service or military. Then I have to tell you about my Metcalf line. He came in Kentucky after the war with Simon Kenton, and he went down and settled near Blue Licks. And one of his sons became the 10th governor of Kentucky. So it was easy to trace the Metcalf line because of the relationship to the 10th governor of Kentucky. Anyway, I joined another organization called First Families of Kentucky. Your family had to be in before statehood of 1792. There are only 3 people in Kenton County in First Families of Kentucky. It's very hard to prove because this was before people kept written records. But anyway, I was sworn in by Stephen Collins, Martha Lane Collins' son. He's the president, and I went to Lexington to be sworn into First Families. And as a genealogist, I just have so much to do, and I just hope I have time in life to do it. I just feel obligated to these men to tell their stories and to tell Kenton County how they all lived here. This was the Wild West. You know what I mean? They got land here for serving, and it turned out great. So anyway, a lot of the roads, Stevens Road, my guy was buried on Stevens Road, and people documented this. They saw his grave, but guess what? Someone took all the stones. There's only one stone left. They said it was a huge cemetery, and the only ones left is one of his sons, John R. Stevens, and his wife. Isn't it sad that people would take these stones and tear up a Revolutionary War gravesite? So very seldom do we find their graves because they were on farms and the farmers don't want the stones.
Right.
Today the law doesn't allow them to do this. Okay, so let's go back to pensions. Okay, that's an important thing. These guys were like in their 60s, 70s, some headed to 80. They couldn't farm. They were so old and not well. No Social Security in those days, so they went to try to get a pension. But, okay, they couldn't read and write. They had to go over to what is now Campbell County, across the river in a boat, like a little canoe, go to this log cabin courthouse and tell their story. They had no papers. They lost all their paperwork. They had to prove they were married to this. They had to prove all kinds of stuff, their service. So anyway, now Fold 3 is putting all these pensions on their computer. So I think I copied about 30 pensions last night. And as you said, it tells so much about the person, what battles they were in, where they lived, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, we're going to put all this in our booklet, something that's never been done before in Kenton County. It'll be wonderful for people to read when we get finished.
I just so admire you, Pam, for taking this on, because I know it's quite a challenge. And Randy, do you have a little patriotic song that you could play for us?
Oh, good.
What you got to do, Rand?
Woody Guthrie, This Land Is Your Land.
Oh, okay.
This land is your land. That'd be fantastic. And while you're doing that, I'll tee up another little video. Thank you, Randy.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I
two more things.
Certainly.
Okay, I would like you to show this. This is my stone to commemorate William Stevens. It's placed on the front of Independence Cemetery. We didn't put it on his farm because nobody would see it, plus people might destroy it. So anyway, it's beautiful, and when people from Highland helped me with this, I was in tears thinking how my family would think of this. So I put on the back of it, in memory of the patriots and in memory of the families that followed them here, because it was so brave of these families to come here to this no man's land. Anyway, this is the DAR symbol, and in the ground is the SAR symbol. So anyway, I hope when they have Memorial Days and parades, people, young people especially, students from Simon Kenton will see this and think of something they've never thought about before, revolutionary heroes that came to rule this rural area. And the last thing I would like to say, my hope for this whole project, that I will have a plaque with the names of all these people on it, and I'm hoping to put it someplace prominent, like the new county building, and where people would see it.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's our goal when we get all these people and their names.
Yeah.
So anyway, mine is on the front row of Independence Cemetery. If you're ever there, stop and see it. It's beautiful.
Now, is there some pictures here too?
That's okay. That's smaller. And then the thing at the back, in the memory of the families, the brave families that followed them here.
Oh, fantastic.
So, I mean, it's a neat project.
Well, let's play another little video here. Let's see here now, Johnny. This is honoring some of those veterans that you see go by. And each and every family should check out and thank their veterans.